So we all know that having a gun is a huge responsibility. These are people that had a weapon, made a horrible decision.
Number 1. Jada Bell. 20-year-old Jada Bell pulled into the drive-thru of a Steak 'n Shake in St. Louis County late on the night of April 8, 2026. Prosecutors say she was angry over her food order. Minutes later, 32-year-old Chauncey Meekins was dead behind the window. Another worker was wounded, and detectives were racing to a fast food restaurant turned crime scene. The Steak 'n Shake sat in the 11,000 block of Bellefontaine Road in North St. Louis County, an area many locals also know as Spanish Lake. It was late, around 11:35 that night, the kind of hour when drive-through spots often get a mix of tired workers, late-night customers, and people looking for one last meal before heading home. Inside the restaurant, employees were still working the shift, serving cars one by one through the window. Chauncey Lachelle Meekins was one of those workers. She was 32 years old from Bellefontaine Neighbors, just a short distance from where she worked. People who knew her said she was the kind of person who would give you the shirt off her back, loving, caring, always willing to help. She was working 2 jobs at the time, the Steak 'n Shake and a shift at Family Dollar, just trying to build something. Her mother, Tamala Washington, said she was always happy to go to work. She had a twin brother, Brian McGill Jr., and a father, Chauncey Lovell Meekins, who called her his only baby. 15 days after that night, on April 23rd, she would have turned 33 years old.
Wow.
Just before midnight, a white SUV pulled into the drive-thru. Behind the wheel was Jada Bell, 20 years old, from unincorporated St. Louis County, an area called Northwoods. Bell pulled
How does a 20-year-old have a gun?
up to the window and had a problem with her order. According to her mother, Chauncey believed the dispute was over a second order of onion rings that wasn't in the bag. The back and forth started at the window. At some point, Bell took her drink and threw it at Chauncey, who was standing right there on the other side of the glass. Chauncey threw it back. That's when Bell reached for a gun. She fired multiple shots through that drive-through window, straight into the restaurant. Chauncey Meekins was hit and went down. A male co-worker standing nearby was also struck, shot in the hand. He was rushed to hospital and survived. Chauncey wasn't as lucky. She was pronounced dead right there at the scene. Her mother was later told by a manager that 8 shots had been fired in total. Police haven't confirmed that number officially, but nobody disputed that there were multiple rounds. Bell drove away from that window in the white SUV and disappeared into the night. When St. Louis County Police arrived at the Steak 'n Shake on Bellefontaine Road, they found 2 employees who had been shot, one of them already gone. The drive-through window where it happened was shattered. The whole thing had been caught on the restaurant's surveillance cameras. Police knew what had happened. What they didn't have yet was who was in that white SUV. For the next 12 days, Chauncey's family waited. Her mother, Tamala Washington, spoke publicly in those early days and said she couldn't understand it. Why would somebody want to shoot somebody in a fast food restaurant over some fast food? She said. Investigators spent those 12 days working every angle they had. They had the surveillance footage, they had the white SUV, and they had something else, cell phone data. Detectives were able to place Bell's phone in the area of that Steak 'n Shake at the exact time the shots were fired. That, combined with what was on those cameras, was enough. On April 20th, 2026, 12 days after the shooting, Jada Bell was taken into custody. She was charged with 6 felonies: first-degree murder, first-degree assault,
20.
unlawful use of a weapon, and 3 counts of armed criminal action. She was held on a $1 million cash-only bond with no 10% option. She's been in custody since her arrest, and according to police, she hasn't said a word. Chauncey's cousin, Anthony Wilhite, spoke for the family on what they wanted to see happen next. He said they were pushing for the death penalty, not for revenge, but to send a message. The St. Louis County prosecuting attorney, Melissa Price Smith, addressed the death penalty question directly. She said her office has a specific process they go through before ever deciding to pursue it. The homicide team has to meet, put together a formal memo, and bring it to her. And at the point when Bell was charged, that hadn't happened yet. so whether Bell will face the death penalty is still an open question. What is certain is that Bell now sits in jail facing murder charges over a missing order of onion rings. And Chauncey Meekin's mother is left with one question she'll probably never get a real answer to. Who kills somebody over onion rings? Number 2, Elijah Mackey. Elijah Mackey was working the late shift at a Checkers in Kissimmee, Florida, when a customer at the front window started complaining about his food order. Mackey wasn't even the one handling the complaint. Another employee was dealing with it. But at some point, he climbed out of the drive-through window, walked around to the front of the building where the customer was standing, pulled a gun from his waistband, and shot him in the chest. The customer's name was Wesley Robertson. He died at the hospital that night. The argument, according to witnesses, was about mayonnaise packets. This happened on the night of May 21st, 2025, on a Wednesday, just after 10 o'clock. That Checkers is on West Earlo Bronson Memorial Highway in Kissimmee, right next to Old Town, a busy entertainment and shopping area that draws tourists and
Let me say this. If you don't know how to walk away right now in this climate, in this culture that we got right here, if you don't know how to walk away, it's just a matter of time before you find yourself in some kind of altercation, some kind of trouble. Man, just walk away, bro.
locals year-round. Wesley Robertson had placed his order at the front window, not the drive-through, but one of the walk-up windows at the front of the building. And when he got his food, he wasn't happy with it. Exactly what was wrong with the order isn't entirely clear from official sources. One witness told investigators Robertson was asking for mayonnaise packets that hadn't been included in his bag. What is clear is that he started complaining to the female employee at the window and asked more than once to speak to a manager. He wanted someone in charge to come and sort it out. Elijah Mackey was 23 years old and working the drive-through that night. He wasn't the employee Robertson was complaining to. By all accounts, the complaint had nothing to do with him. But at some point during that back and forth at the front window, Mackey decided to involve himself. And instead of walking out through a door like a normal person, he climbed out of the drive-through window and made his way around to the front of the building where Robertson was standing. What happened in those seconds between Mackey arriving at the front and Robertson going down is where the case gets complicated. According to witnesses, the two got into a verbal argument. Robertson, at some point, called Mackey a derogatory name. And that's when Mackey reached into his waistband, pulled out a small handgun, and fired. One shot, straight to the chest. Robertson collapsed, and Mackey took off. He didn't get far, though. Osceola County deputies responding to the scene found him a short time later, hiding under a stairwell at the Celebration Suites, a hotel right next door to the Checkers. When deputies detained him, he still had the gun on him. He told them up front that he was armed, and then, while sitting there in custody, he asked whether Robertson was okay. Robertson was not okay. He had been rushed to Osceola Regional Medical Center, the nearest hospital, and despite efforts to save him, he was pronounced dead from his injuries that same night. The next day, May 22nd, Osceola County detectives obtained an arrest warrant for Elijah Travis Mackey. He was booked into the Osceola County Jail on one count of first-degree premeditated murder with no bond. When Mackey appeared before a judge for the first time, bond was denied. He's been sitting in the Osceola County Jail ever since. In November of 2025, 6 months after the shooting, he entered a not guilty plea. His case is still working its way through the courts. Checkers put out a statement after the shooting calling it shocking and saddening, and said the actions of one employee don't reflect the values of their thousands of workers across the country. Wesley Robertson walked up to a fast food window one night to get his order sorted out. He never made it home, and Elijah is now facing the rest of his life in prison over a dispute he didn't even have to be part of. Number 3.
I want you guys to understand another thing too and recognize this stuff is recent. That's just not last November. Like, this is not something that was like 5 or 6 years. Dude, this stuff just happened. These people are still sitting in jail right now. So, and if anything, it's just gotten worse now, bro. Like, people are more stressed. People are, the way the prices are with everything now. And if you go to these little fast food places thinking you can just talk to any people any kind of way, or, you know, handle people any kind of way, man, it could turn out bad for you, or it could turn out bad for them, and you have to live with that for the rest of your life. So once again, bro, just open your eyes right now, man. These are horrible times.
Tania Evans. 19-year-old Tania Evans walked back into that McDonald's on Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard in Atlanta, carrying a gun police later said was stolen. She was there to complain about food missing from her order. She and her 2 sisters had come back inside to confront the employee who'd handled it. By the time it was over, 30-year-old Tamanika Woods, a mother of 4, was on the floor with a gunshot wound to the chest, and Evans was being held down by a customer until police arrived. This happened on December 27th, 2023, 2 days after Christmas. That McDonald's is on Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard in Atlanta's West End neighborhood, a busy, working-class part of Southwest Atlanta, right near a shopping mall and one of the city's major MARTA transit stations. Tamanika Woods wasn't even a customer there. She was there because her friend worked at that McDonald's. That's just who she was. If someone she cared about was in trouble, she showed up for them. Her family called her Nene. Her father, Ephraim Marshall, described her as sweet, family-oriented, a good mother to her 4 kids. She was 30 years old. So when Evans and her sisters started going at her friend behind the counter over the missing food, Tamanika stepped in. She wasn't looking for a fight. She was just trying to back up someone she cared about. Neither side was backing down. Then one of Evans' sisters got physical, and the argument turned into something far worse. What happened next was caught on surveillance video. Evans reached into her waistband, pulled out a handgun, walked toward Tamanika Woods, and fired 1 shot. The bullet struck Woods in the chest, and she collapsed to the floor. The whole restaurant came apart at once. Customers screamed, chairs scraped across the floor, and people rushed for the doors at the same time. Evans then turned and headed for the exit. A male customer grabbed Evans before she reached the door and held her on the ground until police walked in. Atlanta homicide major Peter Malecki later called it exactly what it was. He said one of the leading causes of homicide in that city is escalating disputes. Atlanta Police Zone 4 officers got the call around 2:42 that afternoon. When they arrived, someone was already doing CPR on Tamanika. Another person who'd called 911 told the dispatcher she'd been shot in the heart. Paramedics rushed her to the hospital, but she didn't survive. Tamanika Woods was pronounced dead from that single gunshot wound to the chest. Evans was taken into custody that same afternoon. Later, when detectives sat down to question her, they told her that Tamanika Woods had died. Evans showed little reaction. She said nothing, asked for a lawyer, and the interview ended there. When police looked into the gun, they found it had been stolen from a vehicle broken into at a parking garage about 5 miles from the McDonald's. Atlanta police said that year alone, 1,848 firearms were reported stolen from cars across the city. At her bond hearing 2 days after the shooting, a judge denied bond entirely. Evans was held in Fulton County Jail facing murder, aggravated assault, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, and theft by receiving stolen property. She initially pleaded not guilty. The case moved through the Fulton County court system over the following year. Eventually, Evans's attorney worked out a deal with prosecutors. Instead of going to trial on the felony murder charge, Evans pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter, aggravated assault, and the firearms charge. The murder charge was dropped as part of that agreement. On November 19th, 2024, nearly a full year after Tamanika Woods died on the floor of that restaurant, Tania Evans was sentenced to 25 years in prison. She was 20 years old at sentencing. She'll be in her mid-40s before she's eligible for release. Number 4.
Guys, this is going to be probably like a 3-part series. Man, I want to thank you guys for watching. Please, man, subscribe, like, leave your comments. What do you guys think about these people that kind of just, in one instant, just threw their life away over something as small as like onion rings and mayonnaise packets? Like, this is crazy, man. So please, subscribe, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching with me.